Welcome to our deep dive, everybody, the Panama Canal.
Yeah, the Panama Canal.
We've got diaries, we've got official reports, we even have some first-hand accounts from the people that were actually there.
That's fantastic. Primary sources.
Yeah, it's like having a time machine. Today, we're going to try to uncover the incredible challenges and triumphs behind this just monumental project.
Right.
We're going to be focusing on the French efforts.
Okay.
A truly unsung hero named William Gorgas,
Oh, interesting.
the U.S. taking over,
Right.
and the force of nature that was Teddy Roosevelt.
It is interesting, because most people, when they think about the Panama Canal, they think about it as a purely American achievement.
Right.
But it really is a story woven together with French ambition, heartbreaking setbacks, and a fight against nature itself.
Yeah. I mean, we have to start with the French, right?
Right.
Everyone knows the Suez Canal, right?
Of course.
So picture this. Ferdinand de Lesseps, the engineer behind it, fresh off that success, sets his sights on Panama. Oh, yeah. He was like a rock star.
Yeah.
Right. He was awarded the Grand Cross of the Star of India, I mean.
Wow.
The world was completely captivated by his vision.
And initially, the optimism was just overwhelming. Everyone was so excited and swept up in this grand idea.
Oh, yeah.
But the reality on the ground in Panama was a stark contrast to all the fanfare and the celebrations.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was like they were walking into a nightmare. And they had no idea.
Yeah.
Take the Chagres River.
Right.
That thing was a beast, right? Prone to massive flooding, and just trying to control that thing was a challenge they just were not prepared for.
Yeah. Their experience with the Suez, which was largely a desert excavation that gave them, maybe a false sense of confidence.
Oh, right.
Panama's terrain, though, was a completely different beast. A dense, rain-soaked jungle.
And deadly diseases.
Right.
Like yellow fever and malaria were rampant.
Yeah.
We're talking overflowing hospitals, funeral trains just constantly carrying away the dead. It's hard to even fathom working in an environment like that.
Yeah.
Where just being there felt like a death sentence.
Yeah.
The human cost was it was staggering. And then on top of that, you had the financial disaster.
Right.
The Compagnie Universelle, the company behind the project, went bankrupt. Thousands of investors, they lost everything, many of them just ordinary French citizens.
It's heartbreaking. Their dreams of a Panama Canal were in ruins.
Yeah.
Ultimately, ambition wasn't enough.
No.
In the face of disease.
Right.
This challenging environment and financial, mismanagement.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, could anyone overcome these challenges?
Yeah, that's the question, yeah.
Could anyone succeed where the French had failed so miserably?
Right.
And that brings us to our unsung hero,
Okay.
Dr. William Gorgas.
Okay.
And he was a U.S. Army physician who had experience battling yellow fever in Cuba.
Right.
And that turned out to be crucial for the canal's future. What's remarkable about Gorgas is that he was applying this mosquito-borne disease theory, which was still pretty controversial at the time.
Oh, yeah. Back then, people believed that diseases were spread through, like, bad air or contaminated water, right?
Or contaminated water, right.
So his focus on mosquitoes was like this radical shift in thinking.
Yeah, definitely.
So were people receptive to his ideas?
Not initially, no. Not at all. In fact, he faced quite a bit of resistance even from the medical community.
Wow.
But Gorgas was incredibly meticulous. He studied the specific mosquito species responsible for spreading yellow fever and malaria,
Okay.
the Stegomyia fasciata and Anopheles. He meticulously documented their breeding and feeding habits, which allowed him to develop these targeted strategies for controlling them.
So what did those strategies look like? Was it different from, how we approach mosquito control today?
Well, some of the methods might seem familiar, like fumigating homes and buildings to kill adult mosquitoes.
Okay, yeah.
But he also focused on eliminating their breeding grounds.
Right.
By draining swamps and stagnant water.
Right.
And he was a strong advocate for using mosquito nets to prevent bites.
Smart.
Yeah. Simple but effective.
Yeah. Those methods might sound simple now, but they were revolutionary at the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And more importantly, they worked.
They did. The impact was undeniable. Disease rates plummeted under Gorgas's leadership.
Wow.
And for the first time, Panama started to feel like a place where people could actually work and live without facing, certain death.
That's amazing. It's amazing to think that one person's dedication could have such a profound effect.
It's pretty inspiring.
He really paved the way for the next chapter of the Panama Canal story.
He did. He set the stage.
Oh.
Yeah, Gorgas's work, it really set the stage for the United States to step in. And they had their own reasons for wanting to see this canal built, you know.
Oh, yeah. It was the turn of the 20th century.
Right.
America's global influence was growing rapidly. Their navy was expanding, and they knew that a two-ocean navy would be, crucial for projecting their power. A canal across Central America was the key to making that happen.
Exactly. Yeah, but then that led to another debate, right?
Right.
Should the canal be built in Panama, where the French had already made some progress, albeit disastrous?
Right.
Or in Nicaragua, which seemed to offer, a less challenging, more politically stable route?
I mean, it sounds like there were compelling arguments for both sides.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Panama had, the benefit of some existing infrastructure.
Right.
But also the legacy of disease and that devastating failure.
Mm-hmm.
What tipped the scales in Panama's favor?
Well, that's where a truly fascinating character enters the picture, a Philippe Bruno Varilla.
Okay.
Now, he was a French engineer who had worked on the original Panama project and became a passionate advocate for reviving it.
Okay.
But this time under U.S. control.
So he switched sides, so to speak.
In a way, yeah, he did. And he had a tough job convincing the U.S. to take on such a risky project,
Right.
especially after what happened to the French. But
Yeah.
he was incredibly shrewd, to say the least.
Okay.
He cultivated relationships with powerful U.S. senators like Mark Hanna, even President Roosevelt himself.
Wow.
And when a volcano erupted in Nicaragua, he seized the opportunity and played up these, fears about the region's instability. There are even stories about him handing out Nicaraguan postage stamps featuring an active volcano to U.S. senators.
Oh, wow. That's talk about a power move.
It's pretty amazing.
And it worked.
Absolutely. U.S. opinion shifted in favor of Panama, and Bruno Varilla was instrumental in securing the Hay-Bruno-Varilla Treaty, which gave the U.S. control over the canal zone.
Okay.
Essentially creating a U.S. territory within Panama.
I mean, that treaty was obviously controversial, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, giving one country that much control over another country's land, even for a project as significant as this, it must have caused a lot of tension.
Oh, it definitely did. Many saw it as a blatant land grab, a prime example of U.S. imperialism.
Right.
And it didn't help that Panama was, at the time, a province of Colombia.
Right.
So the Colombian government, they weren't exactly thrilled about the U.S. taking control of such a strategically important asset.
So enter Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where his speak softly and carry a big stick approach to foreign policy really comes into play.
Yeah.
He was determined to see this canal built and wasn't going to let Colombian objections stand in his way.
Right. Roosevelt's actions were swift and decisive. The U.S. quickly recognized Panama's independence.
Wow.
And deployed warships to prevent Colombia from intervening. Some argue that he essentially orchestrated the Panamanian Revolution, using the canal as leverage to further U.S. interests in the region.
That's a bold move, to say the least. Whether you agree with his tactics or not, there's no denying that Roosevelt was a driving force behind the U.S. taking control of the project.
He was a force of nature, and once they had the green light, they faced their own set of monumental challenges. I mean, even with Gorgas's work, this was still a massive, massive undertaking.
Right.
They were essentially trying to tame a jungle and carve a waterway through a mountain range.
I mean, I can only imagine the engineering feats involved. Where did they even begin?
Well, they had to build enormous dams.
Right.
Like the one at Gatun, which created this huge artificial lake.
Okay.
Then there was the Culebra Cut.
Okay.
This 9-mile stretch through the Continental Divide. Excavating that required millions of cubic yards of earth and rock to be removed.
Wow.
Not to mention tons upon tons of dynamite.
That sounds incredibly dangerous, especially given the terrain and, the constant threat of landslides and flooding.
It was incredibly risky. And tragically, many workers lost their lives in accidents. It's important to acknowledge that human cost, even as we marvel at the engineering achievements.
It's a testament to the determination and ingenuity of the engineers and the sheer grits of the workforce that they were able to overcome these challenges and actually complete the canal.
And they did. In 1914, the Panama Canal was officially opened, hailed as one of the greatest engineering feats of all time.
Wow.
It was a moment of immense pride for the U.S., and for Roosevelt, it was the realization of a long-held ambition.
But looking back, it's a complex legacy, isn't it? A marvel of engineering, yes,
Hmm.
but achieved through some ethically questionable actions. It makes you wonder how this story would be viewed
Yeah,
today.
and it's also important to remember that the Panama Canal wasn't just an engineering project, it was a massive social experiment.
Right.
I mean, you had this creation of an American community right in the heart of Panama.
Yeah, that's fascinating to think about.
Yeah.
This little piece of America dropped into the tropics. What was life like for the workers and their families?
Well, it really depended on your race and your job.
Okay.
The workforce was highly segregated,
Right.
reflecting the social norms of the time back in the U.S. So, skilled workers,
Right.
mostly white Americans, they enjoyed a relatively comfortable lifestyle.
Okay.
They had well-constructed housing, access to good schools, hospitals.
Wow.
They even had recreational facilities like, clubhouses and baseball fields.
That sounds pretty idyllic,
Yeah, for some.
at least for some.
But I'm guessing it wasn't that rosy for everyone.
I was about to say.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
Unskilled laborers, mostly Black West Indians,
Okay.
they faced much harsher conditions.
All right.
Their housing was often crowded and substandard with limited access to those same amenities.
Yeah,
And they were paid significantly less
of course.
than the skilled workers, creating this really stark social divide.
It's a reminder that even in a project as groundbreaking as this, issues of race and inequality were still very present.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the divide went beyond just housing and wages.
Right.
Even the Panama Railroad had separate cars for first and second class passengers,
Oh,
which essentially meant segregated seating.
it's incredible how ingrained segregation was, even in a place so far removed from the U.S. You'd think embarking on such an ambitious project might have fostered more of a sense of unity.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
But, amidst all of that, there was a sense of shared purpose
Okay.
among the workers.
Okay.
Everyone from the engineers
Right.
to the laborers understood that they were part of something historic.
Yeah, I imagine the sheer scale of the project and the challenges they faced must have created a strong bond.
It did.
Yeah.
The canal wasn't just a job, it was a way of life.
Right.
People worked long hours, often under dangerous conditions.
Right.
But there was this sense of pride in what they were accomplishing together.
What about life outside of work?
Yeah.
What do people do for fun in the canal zone?
Well, the Isthmian Canal Commission, or ICC, they took recreation pretty seriously. They organized movie screenings, built clubhouses, and even sponsored baseball leagues.
Wow.
They knew that, keeping the workers happy and productive meant providing these outlets for leisure.
It sounds like such a fascinating mix of cultures and experiences.
It was.
But it couldn't have been easy being so far from home, especially for the families.
No, it definitely wasn't.
Yeah.
Life in the canal zone was challenging.
Right.
The climate was hot and humid, and although Gorgas had done a remarkable job controlling disease,
Right.
it was still a constant worry.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
It must have taken an immense amount of resilience to adapt to that kind of environment.
It did, but for many, the chance to be a part of something so monumental that outweighed the hardships.
Right.
The Panama Canal stood as this symbol of human ingenuity and perseverance,
Yeah.
and those who helped build it carried this deep sense of accomplishment.
It truly is a marvel of engineering
Yeah.
and a testament to the power of human ambition. But as we've seen, the story of the Panama Canal is far from simple.
No.
It's a complex tapestry of triumphs and tragedies,
Right.
of innovation and exploitation.
Yeah.
And its legacy continues to be debated today.
It does.
I mean, the impact on global trade is undeniable,
Oh, yeah.
but the political and ethical questions surrounding its construction remain relevant.
They do.
Well, what an incredible journey through history.
It was, yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Panama Canal.
Thanks for having me.
It's a story that makes you think about the complexities of progress and the lasting impacts of human ambition.